Hello and welcome, buddy. What is going on? So this is MiaSanMiaTV, and this is part one of I guess you could say a 15-part weekly series I'm gonna try and be doing. As you probably read by the title, the reason why I'm starting with this player with Alexis Sanchez is mainly because he is probably the most likeliest player out of all from the whole list that I've got, from the whole 15 players that I've got. He's probably the most likeliest player that will sign. Although I don't think it's very likely, but since Kicker came out recently, I think it's become much more likely than I thought it was going to be 2 weeks ago, for example. But yeah, the reason why I want to start with Alexis Sanchez is because, like I said, he's probably the most likeliest player of all of them that I mentioned that we are going to sign. And I want to do it in an order of likelihood. I want to do it in the, not so much in the order of importance, but in the order of likelihood, so that I can talk about each player in depth. So let's get started with Alexis Sanchez. Now, Alexis Sanchez, he has a year left on his contract. He plays for Arsenal and Chile. He is probably Arsenal's best player, and he looks, I mean, basically the best way to describe him is imagine Vidal as an attacker. I think that's like literally the best way you can describe him. He is a typical South American, which means that he'll fight for the ball. He fight for every single ball. Basically gives 100% on the pitch at all times. Now whether that is good or bad, that obviously depends on a team, because in a team that likes to play very structured system, a team that likes to be very methodical in the way that they work, he can sometimes not follow that system. But in a team that gives its players a lot of freedom, he will thrive, and he will look very well. He will look very good. Now his main position is left wing, although he can play on the right wing and as a sole striker, which obviously is very good considering that he'd be able to play as a Lewandowski replacement or a Ribery replacement. So there are a lot of good things about him. There are a lot of good aspects about him. Now, perhaps the one negative is his age. He is 28, nearly 29 as well. So if we were to sign him for, say, 3 to 4 years, that in itself, he'd be 33, 34 by the time he would... by the time his contract would run out, and considering that it's his last year on his contract at Arsenal, he would cost roughly... I'd say it would cost roughly, say, 35 to 40 million. I'm talking about euros here, 35 to 40 million euros. And overall, that's quite a lot of money for a player that's only going to be at his best, say, for another 3-4 years. So it would be a little bit of a risk, maybe not a risk, but it would be a little bit of it would be a lot of money for a player that hasn't got, decades left at the top level. Now, looking at stats, and I want to show you that screen. Looking at stats, that should be the one. Yeah, looking at his stats, he's played 45 matches this season in 2016-2017, with 33 coming in the Premier League, 8 coming in the Champions League, and 4 coming in the FA Cup. He has scored 19 goals in the Premier League, 3 goals in the Champions League, 2 goals in the FA Cup, 24 goals in total this season, and he's got 10 assists in the Premier League, 5 assists in the Champions League, and 3 assists in the FA Cup with 18 assists. So in 45 games, he has gotten himself 24 goals and 18 assists, which are very good numbers. Those are very, very good numbers, and quite frankly, these are great numbers. To put it the best way, these are numbers that you would really like to see from a player of his quality. These are numbers that you can look at. You'll be totally, what's the word I'm looking for? You'll be totally sold on him. That's the word I'm looking for. You'll be totally sold on him. The numbers are good. Like I said, everything about him really is good. My main worry is his age. Now let's look at the complete performance data. I've not actually looked at that before. But if you look at, he's played most of the 90 minutes for Arsenal. There are a few games where he hasn't. But in general, he's played 90 minutes in the Premier League for Arsenal, which just shows you how important he is for them. And I would even go as far as say that the only reason why they're so high in the table right now is because of him. And they're not really that high, but well, I think they're 5th or 6th right now. But the only reason why they're even in that position is mainly because of him. Obviously, when you have a player that scores 24 goals and has, I think it was 18 assists, you're naturally going to be reliant on him, but he's just been that good this season. So if you look at here as well, his overall record in the Premier League, he's got 98 matches. In those 98 matches, he has scored 48 goals and assisted 23 times, which are phenomenal numbers. Now, if you look at his La Liga numbers, obviously when he was at Barcelona, still very, very good numbers with 39 goals and 27 assists in 88 matches. But you can just, I believe, he's become much more prolific, as you can probably tell by the numbers. Although I'd say that's perhaps, I think the stats, I think they show a good amount. I think they show a good example of how he's been doing at Arsenal so far. But I also believe that the numbers could be much higher for him if he had the team really. If he had a much better team at Arsenal, then I think he would be able to do much better with them. His numbers would be much better, and quite frankly, his stats would be much better. So, although his numbers are very, very good, do take in mind that Arsenal had a very poor season this season, and quite frankly, he's been the one shining example for them. So from that standpoint, that's Alexis Sanchez for you. Like I said, he gives it 100%, regardless of how his team is playing. He will give 100%, and he's been such a big link because he is so versatile, and he's on his final year of his contract. Now, him being on his final year of his contract is, that's quite a big fact, because obviously that means that the price should be much lower. It shows that he hasn't wanted to sign the contract yet. He hasn't signed the contract at all, and they're gonna look at selling him. Wenger has come out. I keep calling him Wenger, but Wenger has come out recently and has stated that they are not going to sell him to a Premier League rival, that even if they have to keep him for a year and then let him go on a free, they're not going to sell him to a Premier League rival. But the funny thing is that he didn't mention a team from a different league. So, I mean, the two teams really that could be looking at him, the two teams really that could look at his service and buy him, or that need him, would be Bayern and PSG, and I think PSG are falling out of that just because obviously they recently signed Draxler, and Di Maria is actually performing the same way that he used to do. The same way that he used to do last season, not so much this season, because this season at the beginning he used to struggle a lot, which is why they got Draxler, and then as soon as Draxler came in, he started performing well again. So motivational issue, call it what you want, but I don't think that PSG would actually be looking at him that badly anymore. Obviously, if they lose the League One, which it looks like right now, it looks like they're losing that. If they were to actually lose it, then they might go on a big spending spree. So from that standpoint, maybe. But I say we're in a very, very good shout. Now, the only problem I have is the comments that have come out recently from the board and whatnot, from important figures and whatnot, that have said that there's not going to be a revolution, and we're going to take our time with signing players. And the problem is, when you take your time, then a lot of the big names, a lot of the big targets will be gone. So from that standpoint, I don't want to see that. I want us to go for him. He's, like I said, he's probably the most likeliest player, just from the fact that Kicker linked us to him. So from that perspective, I do want to say that he's probably the most likeliest player out of all the 15 players that I've mentioned, that are not mentioned, but all the 15 players that I've noted, that I've written down, that I thought that could help us. But this has been Alexis Sanchez, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you guys next week for the next player. I won't mention who that is, obviously. At least let there be a little bit of a surprise. But the way I've made this basically is the way, especially right at the beginning, I want to do players that we've been linked to, players that we have talked about, players that have been in the news quite a lot. So I want to do these players first, players that I'll also likely, just because that means that if we do eventually sign them, maybe not, but if we do sign them, that I've actually talked about them beforehand, that I've actually gave my thoughts about them beforehand, and that I've actually looked at them in detail before actually signing them, so I don't have to give a reactionary so I don't have to give a reactionary opinion saying basically now that we've signed him, he's the best player in the world. I wouldn't do that. So now that I've kind of looked at him without bias, I can say, I would personally want him. He would be a player that would add quality to your squad for the next 3 years. But beyond that, I wouldn't be so sure. And right now, I would rather, especially right now at this point, I would rather sign players that adds talent to the squad right now and in the future. So he would be right now and the immediate future, but not the long-term future, and that's basically my main worry. That's basically my main thing that I want us to do right now, because right now we're at a point where a lot of the old players, a lot of the players that have been at the club for years and years, a lot of them are starting to retire. A lot of them are starting to think about retiring. Maybe next season they'll retire, and we just need to, I wouldn't say change the squad dramatically, because that's not really the point I'm trying to bring across. We don't really need to change the squad dramatically, but we need to think about the future as well as the present, not just the immediate present, and then think about then worry about that in another 3 or 4 years. From in my perspective, it'd be much better if we actually signed players that can bring players around, let's say 23, 24, players that are at the top level, but will also be there in, say, 7 years, for example. So that's just what I think, though, ladies and gentlemen. Out of a total, if I were to rank him out of like what I'd want him for Bayern, I know it's a really bad ranking, a really bad way of ranking him, but how much I think he would add to Bayern in the long term, I'd say that Alexis Sanchez would probably be a 6 in terms of talent alone. In terms of skill alone, I'd probably put him at a 9. So not the world class, but just under that level, basically. 10 would be world class. So he would be a 9. Just on that, like I said, on that level, just below world class. I know I'm ranking I'm putting rankings right now, but you'd be a what's the word I'm looking for? Not world class, but he would be a continent level class, if that makes sense. That really doesn't make sense, I know, but just go with it for the moment. So he would be a continent level class, not quite world level class. He'd be a 9 out of 10 in terms of skill, and a 6 or maybe 6.5 in terms of just importance. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Long-term importance and short-term importance, he'd be probably a 6 to a 6.5 in my opinion. So from that perspective, that's my numbers, that's my rating. Tell me what you guys think about just Alexis Sanchez in general and the rating. Which is, like I said, it was made up on the spot right now, so it's not a set in stone rating or whatnot, but it's that's just what I'm going for right now. So tell me what you guys think down in the comment section down below. Next up, I want you guys to guess who do you think I'm going to talk about next season. It's going to be quite interesting to see who you guys think one of the 15 players that I think we should go for next season is. I think a few of you guys, I can already tell what a few of you guys are going to say in the comment section. So it's going to be quite interesting to see maybe some obscure players, maybe some players that I didn't even consider whatsoever, players that I think nobody considers. If some of you guys can come up with players like that, that's going to be quite interesting. But that's all there is for me though today, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out and have a nice day.